XRP, a coin that refuses to die, a project that has been written off more times than we can count. Think about it. How many times have headlines screamed, XRP is done? The SEC lawsuit is the nail in the coffin. Or, banks will never adopt Ripple. Yet here we are, years later, and XRP not only survives, it keeps showing up in the conversations that matter most. Banking, payments, regulation, and global finance. Now here's the ridiculous part. XRP is one of the most attacked, ridiculed, and misunderstood digital assets in history, but it's also one of the most consistently resilient. It's faced delistings, lawsuits, endless FUD, and still manages to stay in the top 10 by market cap. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen unless there's something far deeper going on. Look closely and you'll see a pattern. Every time XRP gets pushed down, it finds a way to climb back. Every time the narrative turns against it, major institutions quietly keep building with Ripple technology. And every time the community is told, this is the end, XRP holders double down. Proving this movement isn't just about speculation. It's about conviction in a utility-driven future for money itself. That's why the title says, this is ridiculous and will never stop. Because no matter what regulators, skeptics, or critics throw at XRP, it continues to push forward like a freight train that refuses to be derailed. And if you think this is hype, you'll want to stick around, because in this video, we're breaking down exactly why XRP's momentum is not only unshakable, but why the forces against it may actually be making it stronger. Before we dive in, if you're someone who believes in digging beneath the headlines and looking at the real signals behind this market, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss the deep dives we do here, the ones that cut through the noise and expose what's really happening in crypto and global finance. The storm that refuses to end. The story of XRP is unlike any other in the crypto space. For more than a decade, it has lived in the center of controversy, speculation, and survival. What's ridiculous isn't just the price swings, the headlines, or the endless courtroom drama. It's the fact that despite everything thrown at it, XRP refuses to disappear. Most projects in crypto collapse under far less pressure. They fade into irrelevance the moment regulators breathe in their direction or when liquidity dries up. But XRP, it absorbs the hits, rebuilds, and then pushes forward. Think back to late 2020 when the SEC announced its lawsuit against Ripple. Analysts and skeptics alike rushed to declare XRP dead. Major exchanges delisted it, headlines labeled it toxic, and the market braced for a collapse. Any other token would have been crushed under that weight. But here we are, years later, and XRP is still not only trading but also deeply integrated into discussions about the future of global payments. It's been called a zombie coin, yet it continues to walk straight into partnerships with banks, remittance firms, and even pilot programs with central banks. What makes this ridiculous is the sheer persistence of its ecosystem. Every time there's a setback, whether regulatory crackdowns, market crashes, or negative press, the XRP community doubles down. Developers keep building, investors keep holding, and Ripple continues signing deals across Asia, Europe, and Latin America. This isn't the behavior of a dying project. It's the resilience of something too entrenched to be erased. And here's where the narrative becomes fascinating. XRP isn't just surviving because of hype or speculation. It's tied to a use case so fundamental, cross-border payments, that no amount of criticism can strip away its relevance. SWIFT might still dominate, but its inefficiencies are glaring. Banks still spend billions every year moving money across borders, and Ripple's technology sits like an inevitable alternative, waiting for full-scale adoption. Even its harshest critics admit that the problem Ripple is solving is real. So when you look at XRP's history, battling regulators, being sidelined by exchanges, surviving crypto winters, and still being mentioned in the same breath as central banks, you start to realize why the statement "this will never stop" feels less like hype and more like an observation of fact. XRP has been written off too many times to count, but it always comes back, louder, stronger, and more deeply connected to real-world financial infrastructure. And that's what we'll dive into next. Not just why XRP refuses to die, but how its pace of adoption, the global timing of its integrations, and the consistency of its push into mainstream finance create a momentum that critics can no longer ignore. The relentless utility and expansion of XRP. What makes XRP's story so extraordinary, and frankly, ridiculous in the eyes of those who once doubted it, is how it has embedded itself into the very fabric of global finance, almost silently, while so many other digital assets remain caught up in speculation and empty hype. Let's break this down. Most cryptocurrencies live and die by price charts, hype cycles, and community-driven pumps. But XRP's true driver is utility, the very thing financial institutions cannot live without. Ripple designed XRP not as a meme, not as a gambling token, but as a bridge asset for cross-border payments, liquidity management, and real-world financial infrastructure. And here's where the ridiculous part comes in. Despite years of criticism, lawsuits, and attempts to dismiss it, the demand for faster, cheaper, and borderless money movement has only grown, and XRP is still one of the very few digital assets actually built to answer that call. Think about it. Global remittances move in the hundreds of billions of dollars every year. Banks spend billions just to settle cross-border transactions, often waiting days for money to clear. XRP reduces settlement from days to seconds, slashing costs by up to 70%. That is not a nice-to-have. That is an irresistible solution to a problem that has plagued financial systems for decades. And while other projects brag about partnerships that fizzle out or roadmaps that never come to life, Ripple and XRP have been onboarding banks, remittance companies, and payment providers at a steady, almost relentless pace. Santander, SBI, Tranglo, RippleNet's global reach, these are not small-time players. These are institutions that handle billions daily. That level of integration doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't happen by accident. Now, here's why XRP will never stop. Because the financial system itself has no choice. The world is digitizing money at a speed no one could have imagined. Central banks are rolling out CBDCs, fintechs are bypassing traditional rails, and global trade is demanding instant, borderless settlement. You can't roll that clock back. Once people, companies, and governments see that a payment can be instant, cheap, and transparent, they will never accept the old way again. And XRP sits at the center of that shift. Even the SEC lawsuit, which many thought would end XRP's journey, ended up cementing its resilience. While other projects would have collapsed under the weight of that kind of scrutiny, XRP not only survived, it thrived. It gained more recognition, it proved its staying power, and it positioned itself as the digital asset with perhaps the strongest legal clarity in the US market. That's the definition of ridiculous resilience. So when we say XRP will never stop, it's not a slogan. It's the reality of technology meeting necessity. Financial systems can fight it, regulators can drag their feet, critics can mock it, but the utility of XRP, the demand for speed, cost efficiency, and global reach, that will never go away. The relentless momentum of XRP. Here's where it gets fascinating. Despite everything, lawsuits, market crashes, media criticism, XRP has something most cryptocurrencies could only dream of: relentless momentum that refuses to die. And this isn't hype. It's a measurable, observable reality. First, let's talk adoption. While the average person on social media is still busy debating price predictions, Ripple has been quietly building a global infrastructure that runs deeper than most people realize. Their technology, specifically RippleNet and on-demand liquidity, has already been tested, implemented, and integrated into the systems of banks, remittance providers, and financial networks across continents. This isn't theoretical. It's already happening in corridors spanning Asia, the Middle East, Latin America, and beyond. That kind of groundwork doesn't vanish because of a bad headline or a rough quarter. Once a financial institution integrates Ripple's rails into its system, the switching costs are too high to simply abandon it. Now, let's bring in regulation. Here's the paradox. The very lawsuit that so many believed would crush XRP has, in reality, hardened it. The legal battles forced Ripple into transparency, forced them to clarify the utility of XRP, and ultimately pushed the broader crypto industry toward regulatory conversations that can no longer be avoided. Every time Ripple takes a blow in court and still stands, it adds another layer of resilience. It's like stress testing an airplane. The more turbulence it survives, the more confidence future passengers, banks, governments, payment providers will have in boarding it. And then there's the community. Unlike other projects where hype comes and goes with each cycle, the XRP community has demonstrated almost cult-like loyalty. We're talking about millions of holders who have stood firm through years of doubt, years of being mocked, years of sitting in the shadows while other coins took the spotlight. That kind of patience and conviction doesn't vanish, it compounds. The longer they hold, the stronger the belief becomes. This creates a feedback loop. Community confidence fuels longevity, and longevity, in turn, validates the community's confidence. But here's the real kicker. Ripple is not aiming for retail hype. They're aiming at the backbone of the financial world. While people on Twitter fight over meme coins and speculative pumps, Ripple is sitting at tables with central banks, remittance giants, and cross-border settlement networks. They're targeting trillion-dollar problems, slow, expensive international payments, and offering a solution that no other blockchain has been able to deliver at scale. This is why XRP refuses to die. Because it's not built on hype cycles, it's built on solving one of the most entrenched inefficiencies in the global economy. And think about this. Even during bear markets, when most altcoins bleed into irrelevance, XRP maintains liquidity. It maintains volume. Why? Because institutions don't care about hype, they care about efficiency, cost savings, and compliance. That's why Ripple continues to sign partnerships even when the broader crypto market is gasping for air. So when we say XRP will never stop, it's not hyperbole. It's a reflection of momentum that has proven impossible to kill. Whether it's legal resistance, media skepticism, or market volatility, XRP adapts, absorbs the hit, and keeps moving forward. And the longer this continues, the more ridiculous it becomes to bet against it. The bigger picture, why this will never stop. To really understand why XRP's momentum is unstoppable, you have to zoom out beyond the courtroom battles, beyond the headlines, and beyond the tribal wars of crypto Twitter. What we're witnessing with XRP isn't just another speculative cycle. It's the collision of necessity and innovation on a global scale. For decades, the financial world has been weighed down by legacy systems that were never built for today's speed, volume, or interconnectedness. SWIFT, while once revolutionary, has become a bottleneck, a messaging network trying to serve as a settlement layer in a world that now demands instant, borderless liquidity. Banks, remittance companies, and even central banks know they cannot survive the future by patching up the past. They need rails that are faster, cheaper, and more transparent. That's exactly where XRP fits in, not as a competitor to the dollar, not as some speculative meme coin, but as an infrastructure layer that solves a trillion-dollar problem. And here's the ridiculous part. Even as regulators stall, banks hesitate, and skeptics ridicule, the adoption quietly grows behind the scenes. Liquidity corridors are being tested. Partnerships are inked quietly in regions most people aren't watching: Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa. The biggest financial revolutions never start at the center. They start at the edges, solving the hardest problems in overlooked markets. By the time the mainstream wakes up, the foundation has already been laid. Another piece of the puzzle? Tokenization. The world is rapidly moving toward a reality where assets, real estate, bonds, carbon credits, even entire currencies, will be digitized and traded on distributed ledgers. That transition demands a neutral bridge asset that can interoperate across systems without favoritism or national bias. Gold can't do it. The dollar can't do it forever. Stablecoins are fragmented. XRP, by design, was built for that exact role. And once tokenization goes mainstream, XRP's utility will explode, not because of hype, but because it will be the only tool capable of handling the settlement needs at scale. This is why XRP can't be stopped. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Every delay, every setback, every courtroom twist only builds more pressure behind the dam. And when it finally breaks, the release will be unlike anything this industry has ever seen. XRP isn't just surviving the obstacles, it's being sharpened by them. And that's why, no matter how long it takes, no matter how much pushback it faces, this will never stop. And that's the truth. No matter how many headlines try to bury it, no matter how much resistance XRP faces, the adoption, the momentum, and the transformation it brings to global finance will never stop. What started as a small group of innovators challenging the status quo has now grown into a worldwide movement, and every piece of resistance only adds fuel to the fire. This is bigger than speculation, bigger than short-term noise. It's about rewriting how money moves across the globe. But here's the thing. Conversations like this need more voices. They need people who see through the noise, who understand what's really at stake, and who aren't afraid to stand on the right side of history. So if you found this breakdown valuable, I want you to hit that like button right now. It helps more people discover the truth that mainstream outlets often ignore. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because in the coming weeks, I'll be breaking down even more of the hidden moves, the regulatory battles, and the partnerships that are quietly reshaping finance as we know it. And don't just stop there. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Do you believe XRP's momentum is truly unstoppable? Or do you think the resistance could actually slow it down? I want to hear your perspective. Finally, if you know someone, maybe a friend, a fellow investor, or even a skeptic who needs to see what's really happening, share this video with them. The more people who understand the truth, the harder it becomes for misinformation to win. This is a financial revolution playing out in real time. Don't just watch from the sidelines. Join the conversation, spread the truth, and stay ready. Because XRP isn't slowing down, and neither should you.